Hey guys, it's Alex and welcome to the Geeks Table. So for the last 2 months, I've been using two phones. At first it was iPhone 11 Pro, and later I switched to the iPhone 14 Pro. And I want to say out loud, iPhone 11 Pro is one of the best iPhones Apple ever made. It's compact, its camera is great, it's fast. Gold is not my color, but this shade is really good. And well, I'm totally in love with this phone. So instead of making a pure iPhone 14 Pro review, I've decided to make a competition between the iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro. Do we really need to upgrade? As a hobby photographer, I'll spend quite a lot of time on cameras. Well, it would be a shame not to. I did tons of photos and experiments, so feel free to use the chapters. I respect and appreciate your time. But don't worry, I won't neglect other important things, starting with the Face ID. So iPhone 11 Pro has a very fast sensor. I never had problems with it, except it cannot unlock itself in a landscape position. With the 14 Pro, it's not a problem. So locking it, putting in the landscape, no Apple Watch, and it's unlocked. And actually it works through all the iPhone 14 lineup. Alright, already one improvement. Moving on to the battery. Now, if you have 11 Pro and you're not really ready to buy a new phone, I really encourage you to just go and replace the battery. In Apple Store, it costs around €70 and that will make your phone shine again. For example, I play the 4K video in WebM format in VLC on both of the phones with maximum brightness. WebM format requires the CPU and GPU to decode it, so it pushes the phones quite a lot. In this case, iPhone 14 Pro could live 21 minutes longer. But then I updated the 11 Pro to the latest iOS and restarted the test. And now the difference is just 11 minutes, so yes, it got better. And if you watch a full HD video on YouTube, which obviously doesn't require such a decoding, you'll get these numbers. It's just mind-blowing. Charging the phones is also important. I have a separate video on that where I compared all different chargers and their efficiency, so you may watch it later. The link will be in the description. But now let's talk about these two phones. So both of them support fast charging, but only 14 Pro supports fast wireless charging because it has MagSafe. As a result, we see quite a difference in wired charging. 14 Pro needs 20 minutes less to get the full charge, and MagSafe gets you to 100 in just 2 hours, where 11 Pro has to use the standard Qi charger and makes it in 3 hours and 14 minutes. And you really need to align it perfectly on the charger to get such a result. Speaking of charging, I'd like to share my experience with two accessories. The first one is this one, very compact. Looks very much similar to the Apple Duo charger, but this one has 3. If you have a 14 Pro, you can charge it with a MagSafe, and if you have 11 Pro, you can charge it with a Qi charger. And if you have the latest AirPods Pro, you can charge them in the middle. It doesn't have fast charging for the Apple Watch, but okay, I can live with that. It has a satisfying click, something similar to the AirPods, which is a nice touch, and because it's magnetic, it can be a stand for the iPhones with the MagSafe. I took it with me for my recent trip and it saved so much space and it's so convenient, I really fall in love with it. The other one is this battery pack, and this one is a great one for an iPhone 11 Pro. Why not 14 Pro? The thing is that it has a magnet, so you can take 14 Pro and attach it to its back. It will charge the phone, but it's not MagSafe certified, so it cannot charge it at full 15 watt speed. So the charging speed will be relatively slow. But we have 11 Pro that doesn't support MagSafe and doesn't need extra power, so we take this ring that this battery pack comes with, which is convenient, we attach it to the 11 Pro like this, and now we can do this. So we don't have to pay extra for MagSafe batteries and still have a magnetic wireless charging on 11 Pro. That's so cool! You'll find the links in the description and they are not affiliated. Just hit a like if you enjoyed this video. Right, the camera, the biggest part of this review. So iPhone 11 Pro was the first iPhone with 3 cameras. Well, technically 4 with front-facing one. And it was the first year when Apple put an ultrawide lens into an iPhone. So if we look at the camera specs, we'll see that ultrawide sensors have the same field of view, the 13mm, but the one in the 11 Pro is slower, or you could say darker. it can't shoot RAW photos, and it has no macro or night modes. Let's look at the actual photos. So if we have a lot of light on a sunny day like this, I'd say there is not much of a difference. You know, Apple wouldn't put a completely trashy lens into a flagship back then. I mean, you can't edit a RAW photo, but for a casual photography, it's great. You might notice some blur on the edges or some extra sharpness, but overall the result is more or less the same. Once it gets darker, 14 Pro produces more sharp images. The lens captures more light, and also the AI got more advanced. I really like how 14 Pro worked on this neon light here, just stunning. To be fair, the result is not ideal all the time, so you might need a tripod for any of these phones to get a perfect picture in the dark. And as I said, 11 Pro doesn't have a night mode in the ultrawide lens, but well, honestly speaking, I don't like the result of the 14 Pro. It's too bright and, well, too artificial. Now the macro mode, which 14 Pro and 13 Pro have. Well, this mode is really loved across the community, and people keep saying that it's like an extra camera in this whole camera set, and generally I agree, but it takes practice to capture a good macro photo, because it's so easy to miss the focus point, and if you are moving and the scene is moving, then the result may be like this. Or like this if you're lucky enough. The video capabilities are somewhat similar to the photos. When it's a bright day with clear sky and lots of light, then the cameras are quite comparable. Well, maybe here the contralight is handled better on the 14 Pro. The picture looks stable, the image stabilization does its job great, so if you're doing some landscape shooting or walking with your phone, you'll get a nice image out of any of these devices. But after the sun sets, well, forget that the iPhone 11 Pro has an ultra-wide video. The picture is darker, noisy, and I would never include it into any of my travel videos. Switching to the main camera, and the screaming difference in the specs is the sensor size, of course. 48 megapixels versus 12 megapixels. However, many of the photos that I captured look quite similar. It doesn't mean that 14 Pro has a bad camera, but it means that 11 Pro already had a great camera enough. And in fact, it was a huge step from the XS and XR. And this is one of the biggest debating points. Do we really need to upgrade from 11 Pro to 14 Pro to have a dramatic boost in the images? Well, again, we're looking at a relatively standard lighting condition, so that's why the images may look quite similar. Also, by default, 48 megapixel sensor compresses the image to 12 megapixels. So both photos have the same dimensions once they are saved in the gallery. But okay, I guess it's not the first video you're watching, so you probably know that a bigger sensor may capture more light, which is good in night photography, but more importantly, it may capture the light more accurately and produce a more visually correct image. So if we look at these examples, we'll notice that 11 Pro made them more white or like more flat, and 14 Pro did a much better job here. Or have a look at these. 11 Pro made the photos much more blue, because probably blue is the main color in the picture, and when you see it as a standalone picture, it's fine, it looks great. But looking at the 14 Pro, you see how much it could be improved. My favorite example is this one. Look how awfully the shadow got captured here, and how well it's done by 14 Pro. It may be a rare example, but perfectly illustrates the benefits of a bigger sensor. 11 Pro was the first iPhone to introduce the night mode. Though people haven't stopped complaining, they never do, the pictures looked quite yellow. You can literally guess a night picture was shot on an iPhone judging by how yellow it is. It got improved in 14 Pro, notice it can handle the light reflections better, and in general, night photos look more sharp and more contrast, and well, you can work with them if you shoot them in RAW. Speaking of RAW photos, if you don't know what RAW photo is, it's raw information from the camera sensor that you have control of, and if you're not happy with the coloring, you can change it afterwards, preserving the quality. I have a separate video on that, and I really recommend you to watch it later. It will be in the description. Oh, and to make this review more useful, all the photos in this video can be downloaded via a link in the description as well, so in case you wish to check them in full resolution later, feel free to do so. So iPhone 11 Pro can shoot RAW photos from the main camera and the telephoto camera, but you have to use a third-party app. You can't do it from a default app, unfortunately. iPhone 14 Pro, as well as the 13 Pro, 12 Pro and their respective Pro Max versions, can shoot RAW photos straight from the default camera. They are called ProRAW Photos, and on top of the information from the camera sensor, you're getting all the algorithms applied, like the Deep Fusion, for example. So you're not just keeping the quality and flexibility, you're also keeping the power of the camera AI engine. If we go through the RAW photos of both devices, we'll see that we can actually achieve quite remarkable results with both photos. It requires some practice and, well, time, so it's not a point-and-shoot workflow, but here we finally get use of the Pro stuff because these are Pro iPhones. The darker it gets, the more noisy 11 Pro becomes. It's because these RAW photos were produced without applying any enhancers, unlike 14 Pro photos, which look amazing. There is a workaround here. You can just make the noisy parts darker, so we are hiding our imperfections and the photo will look good, but still it feels like a limitation that we have to bypass. iPhone 14 Pro can shoot ProRAW photos either in 12 or 48 megapixels. On one side, I would definitely shoot in 48 megapixels all the time. I mean, look at this gorgeous night shot. And I can zoom in and crop what I want. Or here, especially in this place, I can definitely see the algorithms did hiccup. In 48 megapixels, it's nice and clear. But this comes at a cost. This picture is 48 megabytes and it's the smallest 48 megapixel photo that I have. For example, this photo is 129 megabytes and this one is 145, so the storage will vanish in no time. Also, you should have quite a powerful machine to handle them. Notice how long it takes to preview them on a spec'd out M1 Max machine. So you should really think twice if you need such a quality. Video has always been the best in class on an iPhone, so it's really hard to catch an improvement of something that's already great. Maybe the tree is not so whitened on 14 Pro, or here the train is not so blue. In general, you have to really look carefully to spot the difference. At night, however, it's really easy. 11 Pro has lots of noise. 14 Pro is better, not ideal, still some field for improvements, but much better than 11 Pro, of course. Telephoto cameras are quite different. In fact, 11 Pro has a faster lens, so it should capture more light, but its field of view is wider, where 14 Pro gives us a closer shot. Sometimes it's really better to have a 77mm lens instead of a 52mm. And you can definitely capture something you are really far away from. The color accuracy got improved quite a bit. Let's see a couple of examples like this or this. And at first it surprised me because the sensors are almost the same, but 14 Pro's one captures less light, so technically 11 Pro should have a better image. But that's not happening, because 14 Pro uses information from all three cameras while you're shooting. So the 48 megapixel sensor secretly helps the telephoto lens that corrects its colors on the way. Well, it's really easy to discover. Just cover two other lenses with your fingers on a 14 Pro and it affects the image in the viewfinder. No rocket science here. And during night shooting, 11 Pro does that trick that I hate a lot. It feels that it can get a better result with the main camera, so it will secretly crop it instead of capturing the real Tele shot. And the cropped image just looks awful. 14 Pro just nails here. It never captured a cropped image from the main sensor. Speaking of a cropped sensor, iPhone 14 Pro now has this 2x button here, which actually captures a cropped image from the main 48 megapixel sensor. And I'm quite happy to have this option. I honestly missed 2x zoom in my 12 Pro Max or 13 Pro, but I would like to say this. If you plan to zoom in the photo or crop it further, do take a photo on a Tele lens. It just has a better output overall and you'll have some flexibility in post-production. If you just need the image as is, then feel free to use the 2x zoom, you won't notice a drop in the quality. Same as with the two other lenses, we got quite an improvement in the night videos. Much less noise overall, most of the time. Not all the time, sometimes it looks quite weird. And I just can't be silent here because I'm so tired of these lens reflections. Unless you're shooting with the ultrawide camera, they will be visible in the shot, and that's so frustrating. Another thing that is still there is the camera switching limitation. If you're shooting a video in 4K 60, you see the camera switches, but they are not actually working. It will be a digital crop of the image, and the result will be, well, far from perfect. Look at this. In order to make it right, you have to shoot anything but 4K 60, for example 4K 30 or 4K 24. In this case, you can switch between all the lenses and it will be an actual switch. And here I should say that Apple did improve the transition because now it looks more natural and more smooth. Hopefully they'll add 4K 60 in the next version and then it will be a complete feature. Do you know what essential setting the iPhone camera doesn't have? The white balance. Apple thinks you don't have to care about it and sometimes it's crazy. I was trying to capture different temperatures of the smart light and the default camera would keep producing nearly equal images. So in 13 Pro and 14 Pro we now have this setting called Photographic Styles. It's hidden in this secret menu. They somewhat affect the white balance and the colors of the image, and if you prefer the photos to be in a certain style, that's why we have this name Photographic Style, you just keep it on and then you don't have to apply different edits on the photos because they will preserve the same style. Note though that in this case you won't be able to capture RAW photos, so it's either this or that. Slo-Mo is something that hasn't been improved in years. We still are limited to Full HD, still there is no 4K option, and 14 Pro got a tiny bit crispier, but I wouldn't notice anything if I watched it briefly. Cinematic mode is an impressive one, though it still blurs the edge of my nose. And this phone has a LiDAR sensor to measure the distance to an object. What's the problem with the nose? But most of the time it works great, and first time in 4K. 13 Pro could do it only in Full HD. It really knows how to switch between people on a different distance, and that's quite impressive. We shot this in the evening, so I thought it might have some problems with the light, but no, it was fine. Well, almost fine. When I switched to the telephoto lens, it starts being noisy, and it got confused once. Thankfully, you can go to the Photos app and edit such a video, and then choose the specific moment and choose the exact person that you wish to be in focus. And then you'll get the result in no time and it will look much better. I also tried this mode at night and no matter how I tried to trigger it working, it didn't. So do keep that in mind. I also have a separate video on how to make videos with a blurry background on non-supported iPhone models. Even the first iPhone SE worked, so check that video in the description later. It will work great on the iPhone 11 Pro. Okay, last but not least, the action mode. The mode that stabilizes the image if you're on a run or you're walking fast. I haven't pushed it hard yet. I might do that later in my DJI Osmo Mobile 6 review, so be sure to be subscribed so you won't miss it. As for now, I've noticed that it needs a close object in front of you, like you're following someone. Otherwise it doesn't know what to follow and what to keep in the frame, and it gets easily distracted. Look how it started following this man. The algorithm just thought that this is the object that you are following, so it tried to keep it in the focus. After brief testing, I'd say the gimbal still gives a better result, but it's great to have such a mode in the camera, because, well, I don't take the gimbal with me all the time, and many people don't even have it. So I really appreciate to have this mode in the phone. I haven't said much about the front-facing camera because I'm definitely not a selfie type of person, but, well, it got autofocus, so there should be some improvement there. However, I'm more interested in using it as a webcam. Right, we're in a Zoom meeting and the participants are the iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro. And today we have quite sunny weather, so the light goes directly here, so this is quite normal condition for the web cameras, so pay attention how they handle it. And by the way, this is not the direct quality that you're getting from the front-facing camera. It's already processed by Zoom, so this is the quality that the participant on the other side of the call will probably see. So yeah, this is the normal light conditions, and now I will cover the blinds and we'll see how it handles the dark environment. And we're back. So it got quite darker here, so I put the blinds on, so now we have just a tiny bit of light coming through the window, just not to be in a complete darkness. And yeah, this is how the web cameras handle a relatively darker environment, so pay attention to the noise and the white balance. So yeah, this is the test of the web cameras of the iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro. As a person who used to host a podcast, I do pay attention to the audio recording, so here is a brief sample for you. Alright, so now I have both phones, the iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro, just laying at the table, and I'm sitting in front of them. I'm speaking normally, so this is the voice quality that you will get in normal conditions, in standard conditions. So if you need to record yourself, just put the phone in front of you and this is the quality that you will get. Alright, now I will stand and go maybe 2 meters away. Alright, so now I'm 2 meters away from the phone, so this is the quality that you will get probably if you're recording someone being on a relatively small distance. So yeah, you can check how the microphone captures the voice. Also, now let me move a little bit. So now I'm standing behind the phone, so if you want to record someone who's sitting in front of you, this is the quality that you will get from them speaking. Yeah, so you can pay attention to the quality here. And also, let me open the window. We have quite busy street today. And let's check. Let's check how it cancels the noise, because sometimes you may want to record something in a noisy environment, and you never know if it will cancel the noise in a good way. So we have quite heavy traffic today, and yeah, this is the quality that you'll get when you have something noisy happening in the background. As you could hear, the 11 Pro sound more like robotic. I could hear some like metal and more flat sound, so 14 Pro did definitely a better job here. So if it's just to record some voice message, there won't be much of a difference, but if you do need a better quality, 14 Pro is a winner here. Now it's time for the speakers. And before we wrap it up, we need to talk about the screen. So 11 Pro has a great screen. It's bright, it's color accurate, it supports True Tone, and it's physically smaller, which I especially appreciate because I'm not a fan of huge devices. 6.9-inch versus 5.8, even brighter, and it supports always-on display and ProMotion technology. Oh, and of course the famous dynamic island is there as well. So first let's talk about the brightness. You probably know that when the iPhone does some intense work, it drops the screen brightness quite significantly to avoid the overheating. And 14 Pro is not an exception here. If I'm shooting photos and videos on a sunny day, I can barely see what's happening on the screen. However, if I'm just browsing the web or do some less intense work, it does increase the brightness under the sunlight. But there's a caveat. The boost in brightness happens only if the screen is mostly black. If you use the white theme or you're browsing a white web page, the iPhone won't change the brightness. The always-on display is a controversial thing. First of all, it's very personal. You may love it, you may hate it, so take my experience here with a grain of salt. So in this mode, the phone does look like it's on, so I kept looking at it more often. It allows to put some personal info in the widgets, but because it's personal, it won't be shown unless the screen is unlocked. So most of the time, it will just occupy the space with no valuable info. And finally, I ended up adding some shortcuts and the weather to make use of it. And just for the record, I do think the new home screen looks ugly. Also, it takes around 5 to 10% of the battery compared to when it's off, so I'm thinking to switch it off completely. And the other benefit is the ProMotion technology. If you're a gamer, you'll be happy. If you're not, just a minor improvement. Smoother scrolling, smoother animations here and there, and that's it. The dynamic island is cool, but not essential. It shouldn't be a selling point for you by any means. I have a feeling that it may be like 3D Touch. It's cool, but sooner or later Apple moves on and may ditch this functionality in favor of something different. So Dynamic Island looks nice, but it's not a game changer for me. And here we are again. So as I said, I love iPhone 11 Pro. I think it will be a great phone for many of us for 3 more years for sure. iPhone 14 Pro is an improvement in most of the features. Camera, screen, Face ID, audio recording, webcam, most of it got better and will become even better with next generations. So if you have money and a strong need in the spec bump, you'll be happy with 14 Pro and you'll get used to its bigger size, I promise. But if you're still happy with your 11 Pro, it's still a great device. Just replace the battery and you'll be good. Now it's your turn to share your opinion in the comments. I'm curious to hear your point of view now. Also check the description of this video for some useful links. It's been Alex and see you at the Geeks Table. Bye bye.